Hello, welcome back to Blender Sushi Live Learning. In this episode, I'm gonna try to tackle vector sorting, and I'm going to give it a demo using animations. We're gonna do everything procedurally, so it's almost like everything's gonna be automatic. And yeah, I'll just gonna get started. So switch on Sverchok Add-On, and we're gonna start with a cylinder. So I'll show it using cylinder, and by default cylinder is a cylinder. It's very simple, very basic. It has 32 vertices by default. Reduce it to 12, and I'm thinking to animate the height, and we're gonna animate the height based on the index. So we're gonna need like a couple of cylinder. Sorting, I will be using line. By default, line will kind of grow in the x-axis. Just plug that into the matrix. Let's have like 10. Oh, 10 is good number, and increase the stepping. Okay, we don't need to see the vertices. Hide it. So we have 10 cylinder, and we know that we can just animate it like this in the height. The nice thing about Sverchok is, of course, you can just plug in whatever value into the let's say we have like range float. Just plug this value into the height, and we should get this kind of thing. Like it looks like it is growing, so we can control the growth of our cylinder this way. Okay, so but before we go too far, actually I need to kind of look at the index of the line itself. So viewer index, and look at the line. So that's of course it's from 0 up to 9, and yeah, that's quite understandable, right? Let's say we are using vector sort, and let's see how this thing change. Actually, with vector sort, the line is actually easy to explain. The distance one, the x, y, z, and the axis is a little bit difficult to explain using line, but the distance one is pretty easy to display. So this is the original vertices, goes into this guy, and this is the output. And let's look at the result. It's still the same, 0 to 9, same, until we give it like a value into the base point. And you can see as I started to move the base point, the index actually changing. And now I keep dragging. 0 is becoming on the right side. So that's the magic of this vector sorting. If we want to check the other one, like x, y, z, we can use something like Hilbert or like a grid. Probably I will do that in next live noding. For now, I will just try to animate this cylinder based on the sorting. Okay, so if I actually sorted the line and plug this result into the matrix, we will see that the cylinder is actually gets sorted. And now if we are doing like if we plug in the float, the range float into the height, we can see suddenly it's changing. So if I change this guy, you see how the things get sorted. That's a 0 index over there on the left. If I just change it, we suddenly get the start on the other side. Okay, so that's one example of vector sorting. Why do we need that? Let's say if you want to animate the cylinder procedurally, in the height, we can do that. So frame, use the frame, and then if you plug in the frame into the height, you will see it's gonna grow. It's gonna grow pretty fast every frame. Because we don't have any limit. So in order to animate it properly, we need to map range. It's almost like kind of like a driver. So we in a human language, we're gonna say if the frame number is between 0 and 50, that means we give it like, okay, 50 frames, just grow from 0 to 2. So by doing that, it's kind of happening, and then it's just gonna grow up to 2. It stops because there is a limit, because we clamp the value. So that's how you can animate procedurally. So we already sort this cylinder from right to left. What else do we need to do? All we need to do is to add some kind of offset. Now I did this a couple of times, but I'll just do it again. So this is like become like second nature. Sometimes I still get a little bit confused as well. Subdivide. So you either use subdivide or addition. Actually, subtract or addition. That's where you can kind of offset the time, but because by default, this is 0 to 50, right? 0 to 50, and the animation is gonna happen between 0 and 50. But if you offset it, you can kind of starting to create multiple value going into this height of the cylinder. So float range, and just plug this guy in there. We just need to adjust this number here. Normally I do it like this, -100 and 0. Count 10 because we have 10 cylinders. So if I just hit play now, see, cylinder should kind of grow from, it's actually growing from 9, which is always, I found it interesting. It's always like the opposite. Okay, so yeah, that's happening. It's a kind of slow animations. I'll increase the time. If you want something a little bit more interesting, you can actually use easing. So easing will take a value between 0 and 1 and turn it into like a nice like a curve. By default it's linear, so you don't see anything, but if you change it to back ease out, for example, and test it out, you will see there's some kind of nice easing. It's gonna overshoot and then settle. This is like the things that animators do manually normally, but you can do it automatically using Sverchok. So yeah, very cool. So it's kind of like pop. It's kind of nice to do this procedurally. It's not always the easiest thing to do, but once you understand, it's very, very powerful. So we can grow the cylinder like that. We can, if you want, we can add more randomization. If you actually add like a random number here, give it a float value between, so give it like 10 random number, size 10, plug into this guy. Now we should start to see some kind of slight randomization. -20 and 20 maybe. See, instead of everything kind of popping at this like in order, this one kind of giving a little bit randomization. You can also use noise for that. So that's it's pretty simple, basic thing to do. But of course, what's matter is here. What I want to display to you is this vector sorting. So if I change the sorting, suddenly this guy is kind of growing from right to left. Yeah, I think that's it's pretty interesting. It's not a very easy concept, but yeah, this is something that I want to show to you. So maybe if I use grid instead of line, and so line currently have 10 points. If I use grid, plane, maybe make it like 5 by 5 is 25. Plug into the vertices. This will also still work, but you need to make sure you plug this guy in to the matrix. Oh, it's already plugged, so okay. Turn off the index. The matrix, let's increase the stepping of the grid so you can see how it's being animated. Apparently we need to also increase this number, 25. So that's the result we get. The position of this vector will affect the order of the cylinder being drawn. So that's if we are using distance. If you change it to X, Y, Z, it will also give you a different result. That's not actually the default. I think the default is more like, see, this is after we sort it, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is after we sort it. I think the original is slightly different. Actually, in this case, it is kind of the same. But if you are using like a Hilbert 2D, plug this into that guy, scale it. If you look at the index, this is after we sort it. Actually, no. That's after we sort it, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this is the one before we sort it, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Hilbert is actually looking something like, I'll show you what Hilbert looks like. So by default, it looks like this. That's Hilbert. It's very, very interesting pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But once we kind of sort the vector, we get a different design. See, 0, 1, 2, 3. That's the new index. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is what X, Y, Z actually does to the order. So if we are using this guy in here and turn it on, you will see the cylinder kind of growing in that pattern with some kind of randomization. If you turn off the randomization, you will see it's more like in order. I'll turn off the index, actually yeah, like that. Should be 1. If you want to have like a taller cylinder, you actually need to add another map range here. So originally 0, 0 and 2, maybe this one should be 0 and 2 as well. Yeah, I think something like that. It should kind of pop out and oh, actually we lost this overshoot, so we need to increase it slightly. 0 to 3 becomes 0 to 5. So it's overshoot and settle. Now I think it's really, really cool that you can do this pretty easily now using Sverchok. Normally it's something that's pretty complicated. You might normally this kind of thing is you need to use particles, but sometimes you don't want to get like particle complexity and you just want to get this kind of result. So yeah, there you go. That's a quick look at this vector sort, and I'm using a demo. I'm using the procedural animations to display these features in Sverchok inside Blender. So yeah, thanks again for tuning in. Hopefully this is useful. Let me know if you have any question in the comment section below. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.